Hi everyone, I am here at the Sitecore Symposium Roadshow. Are we calling it Symposium?
We are.
All right, and next to me is Mike Casey. He is the VP of Solutions who, has come back since last October, but you're part of the original team that built Sitecore out from what it was to what it is today.
Yep. Thanks. Awesome. It's nice to be known for that. It was certainly a huge team effort. But yes, I was one of the early employees, at least in North America, back around 2008.
That's right. So what I want to talk about is I'm talking to all the vendors about this, any of the vendors that actually made the Gartner MQ. Yep. And so back in our, it's showing our age, right? Back in the original days of Gartner MQ, it was the CMS that took the cake.
Yep.
And you've always been a leader there. And now that DXP is here, you've always been a leader there as well. So this year, you made that leader quadrant yet again. You guys are the 800-pound gorilla. Why do you think it is? What do you think that Gartner again sees in you?
Yeah. I think it's a really nice recognition of both history and where we're going, right? I think to be a leader still in the quadrant as we're going through this internal transformation is really interesting, right? So, Sitecore, as you know, Steve, has made the decision to really embrace the composable architecture going forward, right? But it comes from a root of content that is still incredibly important to the overall DXP. I've been around a couple other companies since I left and come back to Sitecore. And what I have realized through all the projects that I've been involved in is that content is so important to be the heart of a good project, right? A lot of other types of projects will forget about the importance of content and go very far in kind of the omni-channel journey and then realize, where's the content, right? And so I think while we aren't necessarily tied to it, right? Being a composable architecture going forward doesn't mean that you have to use our CMS necessarily. I think the heritage of it and the heart of it is still incredibly important to projects going forward.
Absolutely. I think if I really break it down, when we talk about composable architecture, you're one of the few that started out that way. The framework of Sitecore was definitely the most composable, and it was meant for that large and enterprise space. And it's really grown out, but I would agree, the one area that I really like about Sitecore, I can use it or I don't have to.
That's
right. This brings me to the question of if there's so many product vendors out there that claim their DXP, that claim a lot of things. But what I wanted to know, you've been around this space for so long, and I've seen, you part of that Gartner side pretty well since the history of Sitecore.
Sure.
What could you give as advice for vendors, even including Sitecore, to just keep growing? What's kind of that, mantra that you would say keeps you in, the head of analysts? When we look at Sitecore, we really do see you as the 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah. One of the things that I am, most proud of in my first phase with Sitecore was a brilliant overall ecosystem and partner strategy, right? I think early days there was a recognition that while technology is hugely important to the projects that we sell in and that we work on, that really it's the tripod of partner, customer, and vendor of equal parts that is just hugely important to the success of a project. And I think that shows in Sitecore's ecosystem today. We're all making the transition together, right?
Yep.
And it's not that you have to scrap everything that you knew and everything that you did with Sitecore as a platform as it grew 15 to 5 years ago. But moving forward, you still can rely on all the heritage, all the things that you've known and loved as a partner, but move it to that composable architecture that you described, which means now that I can disassemble and then reassemble in the exact perfect way for the project at hand.
You sound like you've talked to a lot of partners.
I always do.
And I always say this, from all the Sitecore symposiums that, I've been going to those almost since the inception, I'll say this, I always look at the floor. Whenever I'm looking at the floor, different booths and that, it's so partner-led, right? And there aren't that many of those vendor conferences that I can say are as partner-led as Sitecore. It's just, and again, I would agree 100%. when you're looking at partners who want to be able to do more, it's always Sitecore, especially from a technical capacity. So here's an interesting question, and Sitecore has an amazing breadth of customers, partners, the verticals long and wide, and you are the 800-pound gorilla. So if I was to ask you who's your specific vertical, because I'm asking all the vendors the same question in terms of with Sitecore, it's like with customers, it's everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But for you, when it comes to verticals, I want to know more about the vertical space in terms of maybe technology, technical capacity, and where you see Sitecore will, I don't want to say trump other solutions, but where you see Sitecore really making a good push.
Yeah, and this is particularly important, Steve, based on the acquisition strategy. When I look back at the first generation of Sitecore and the XP platform, right, it was really built on itself. We always used to use the tagline, Sitecore is built on Sitecore, right, which was a tagline in pre-sales, I'll admit, but it was also very true in that customers and partners were able to leverage the underlying framework to do whatever they wanted to do with the platform. And that led to a really, really interesting set of solutions on top of the platform that became, in some cases, vertical specific, in some cases became, full commerce applications, right? But I think that the next generation, where we're heading, and through the acquisition strategy that we've had, picking up, the best in breed idea that we can build on, not best in breed that comes with a legacy of baggage of technology and customers even, but one that fits the where we're headed. It's a SaaS component that we can then bring together in a better together story. And I think what that leads to is all kinds of new applications that our partners might not have considered before for Sitecore, right? Where now we have a headless commerce engine, for instance, which opens up all kinds of opportunities for marketplaces, for distributors, for anything that wants to leverage that single back-end system but be able to present it in many different ways, right? Our purchase of our acquisition of BoxEver, right, brings us into the CDP space, and I don't even necessarily need to use CDP space because it's a data challenge,
Correct.
A profile challenge, the ability to be able to have a single consolidated platform for the ability to achieve next best conversations on behalf of a brand to its customers. So these composable parts that we're bringing together all have a storyline of vertical, that we didn't necessarily have with a consolidated platform. While you could accomplish it, it wasn't as necessarily targeted as it needs to be to really create the solution at a vertical level.
Yeah, and I'll just add one component that I want to touch on. So when I was in Orlando, I believe it was 2019, and I've only seen better stories come out of this group. Yeah. Your consultative Sitecore group, this is where I think partners love it, is because if I need somebody to really, because keeping up with Sitecore is almost impossible, right? And again, it's coming from that composable side, right? I always see, it's something new. We just talked off camera about something I didn't know. I was like, that's coming. And that group, I think, I will say is probably the most important when it comes to supporting your partners right now, especially new partners or growing partners, or when a partner doesn't know something. I've sat down with your consultants and went, wow, right? Because they really eat, breathe, and live that experience. So again, I just wanted to mention that as one of those, gotchas, because I think other vendors should learn from that.
I 100% agree, Steve, and I think it's a really interesting balance that Sitecore has been able to strike. Because again, going back, don't mean to be history lessons all over the place, but going back to our early days, we were exclusively partner focused in the sense that we had no ambition to have a services team in any way. While we do have a services team today, it is on behalf of the partnerships, right? It is on behalf of, just like you say, making sure that we are guiding, that we are mentoring, that we are providing best practices through that channel. Never to compete, but to complement, right? I think is the strategy.
And I'll be honest, 100% frank honest, I went looking and headhunting for that. Yeah. Because, earlier days from Ectron, we ran into that problem as an integration partner where wait a second, why are we headbutting against the vendor? So as a partner of Sitecore, it was something that I was like, no, we're not playing that game. But we never found, like you said, it is part of the engagement and working with the partners. And I cannot see, I think that's the best possible solution that you guys have brought to the table.
Right, and you had mentioned it off camera too. I think that the customers should expect that of us, right? If we were completely agnostic and said that we had no kind of skill set around the consultancy and around the services and around the mentorship, then we wouldn't be as engaged as we need to be in the success of a project, right? So I think it calls back to that tripod, those three of partner and customer and vendor being equal parts in the equation. And our teams are completely dedicated to that. We are only growing this more day to day around customer success, right? And customer success is the umbrella around which this kind of mentorship and training and services to our partners will be held.
Perfect. Thank you for your time, Mike.
Thank you very much, Steve. Pleasure.
Awesome. Hey.